In March 1938, with the Anschluss, Germany gained control of Austria. Then in September of that year, Germany annexed the Sudetenland and 6 months later, in March 1939, completed the dissolution of Czechoslovakia. German leader Adolf Hitler had achieved these feats using only forceful diplomacy and threats of invasion. He then turned his eyes to Poland, intent on using the same aggressive diplomatic tactics. At the end of World War I, Poland had been reconstituted as a sovereign nation, incorporating parts of the eastern German territories of Pomerania and Silesia that contained majority Polish populations. In 1933, Hitler came to power in Germany and soon implemented a comprehensive rearmament program. In 1934, Germany and Poland signed a 10-year non-aggression pact where Germany promised to uphold the territorial integrity of Poland, including the former German regions that had been ceded to Poland. But by the late 1930s, the now militarily powerful Germany was actively pushing to redefine the German-Polish border. In 1938, Germany proposed renewing this treaty with two major changes: that Danzig must be restored to Germany and that Germany must be allowed to build road and railway lines through the Polish corridor to connect Germany proper and East Prussia. Poland rejected these proposed changes, prompting Hitler to abolish the 1934 German-Polish Non-Aggression Pact. To the Polish government, Hitler was using the same aggressive tactics that he had used on Czechoslovakia, and that if it agreed to the German demands on Danzig and the Polish corridor, ultimately, like the western half of Czechoslovakia, the rest of Poland would be swallowed up by Germany. Meanwhile, Britain and France, which had pursued appeasement toward Hitler, had become skeptical after the German occupation of the Czech region that now formed the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, which had a non-ethnic German majority population, which was in contrast to what Hitler had said that he only wanted restored those territories with German populations. Britain and France were now determined to resist Germany diplomatically and resolve the Polish crisis through firm negotiations. On March 31, 1939, Britain and France announced that they would guarantee Polish independence in case of foreign aggression. Furthermore, since 1921, per the French-Polish military alliance, France had pledged military assistance to Poland if the latter was attacked. In May 1939, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union held talks regarding forming a military alliance against Germany in light of an increasingly likely German invasion of Poland. However, these talks did not prosper. And unbeknownst to Britain and France, the Soviet Union and Germany were holding secret bilateral talks, which on August 23, 1939, led to the signing of the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Treaty, also commonly known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. As the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact assured non-interference by the Soviet Union, Hitler secretly set the invasion date of Poland for August 26, 1939. However, offers by Britain and France for further negotiations and Britain and Poland signing a mutual defense pact on August 25, 1939 forced Hitler to cancel the August 26th invasion date. However, talks between France and Britain with Germany collapsed as Poland refused to negotiate on the basis of ceding territory. The Polish government also took reassurance in its treaties with Britain and France that in the event the Germans invaded, the British and French would attack from the west, and Germany would be faced with a potentially disastrous two-front war. On August 29, 1939, Germany presented Poland with a set of conditions for further negotiations but demanded that this was to be signed the next day, August 30th, which Britain deemed was an ultimatum and so tried but failed to convince the Polish government to negotiate. Then on August 30th, Germany presented a new set of conditions for negotiations, but as the Polish ambassador to Germany had no signing powers, no talks were held. At this point, on August 31, 1939, Hitler announced that further talks would be suspended because of Poland's refusal to negotiate. He then ordered the German High Command to invade Poland for the next day, September 1, 1939. Theoretically, the Polish military was a formidable force. However, its troops were fully trained and equipped, and most of its hardware was obsolete. It did manufacture weapons that were comparable in quality to those in Germany, but these had been produced only in small quantities. Poland's military strategy was plan west, The Polish High Command had rejected the advice of the French to not focus on the less defensible western border regions where flat, open plains predominated and instead concentrate its forces in central Poland, which had the Vistula River and other formidable natural barriers. But for Poland, simply abandoning the western border areas could allow the German army to simply march into these territories, and then Germany could announce that the war was over. Furthermore, for the Polish army, putting up strong opposition to a German invasion would force Britain and France to intervene militarily to comply with their mutual defense pacts. Plan West also considered that if the western defenses failed, the Polish army could make an orderly retreat to its second line of defenses in central Poland, and if that also collapsed, to the southeastern region, the so-called Romanian bridgehead, where the difficult terrain offered excellent defensive capabilities, sufficient for the Poles to hold out long enough for France and Britain to launch an offensive in the west. The German plan called for a swift 3 to 6 month campaign involving coordinated massive offensives from the north, south, and west aimed at denying the French and British enough time to launch an offensive. Furthermore, the undermanned German forces along the western border were ordered not to provoke or engage the French and British because much of the German military was massed for Poland and also because the Siegfried Line was not prepared to resist a powerful Allied offensive. In the lead-up to the war, German operatives launched sabotage operations in German territory, targeting railway stations, customs houses, communication lines, and other infrastructures in the guise that these were committed by Poles. One such operation occurred on August 31, 1939, where German saboteurs donning Polish army uniforms seized a radio station in Germany and aired an anti-German message in Polish. This and other supposed Polish provocations gave Hitler the pretext to launch what he called a defensive war against Poland. Before dawn on September 1, 1939, Germany launched the invasion with the bombing of the town of Wielun and the German warship opening an artillery barrage on a Polish military facility in Danzig. A few hours later, German forces crossed into Poland from the north, south, and west. A small Slovakian contingent also invaded southern Poland. The invasion was directed at Warsaw, the Polish capital, the main thrusts forming two prongs of a giant pincers aimed at flanking and trapping the Polish armies massed at the western border. German planes bombed Warsaw and other cities, as well as military installations and troop concentrations, communication systems, public utilities, and other military-related infrastructures. The ground offensives made rapid gains, by the first week capturing much of Danzig, the Polish corridor, and Polish Silesia, and closing in on Warsaw. Near Kutno, two Polish armies attempted to break out, leading to the biggest battle of the war. By September 15, 1939, German forces were laying siege to Warsaw, and further east, a second pincers clamped shut on September 17th. However faint Polish hopes were at this point, these were dashed when on September 17, 1939, the Soviet Red Army crossed into eastern Poland to occupy the eastern portion that had been secretly allocated to the Soviet Union under the Soviet-German Non-Aggression Pact signed 1 month earlier. Soviet forces met no serious resistance as the eastern border was only weakly defended, and the Polish High Command, completely taken by surprise, did not know if the Russians had come as a friend or foe, and ordered its forces to stand down. Notwithstanding a few small battles that took place, Soviet forces, with their overwhelming size, advanced virtually unopposed. If Poland's plight was not dire enough, its allies Britain and France had not carried out the major military relief that was so desperately needed. On September 2, 1939, 1 day after Germany invaded, Britain and France had issued a joint ultimatum to Germany to withdraw within 12 hours, and after receiving no reply, they declared war on Germany the next day. However, no significant military action followed. British ships blockaded the German coastline, and Royal Air Force planes dropped propaganda leaflets over German cities, while the French launched a lackluster offensive on September 7th on the German Saar region, before withdrawing most of their forces after a week. Historians have pointed out that had Britain and France launched major military actions on Germany's weak western border in 1939, the course of World War II would have been markedly different. On September 17, 1939, the Polish High Command ordered all its remaining forces to withdraw behind the Vistula and San rivers in the southeast and regroup in the Romanian bridgehead. But later that day, with Polish forces disintegrating, the Germans controlling large sections of western Poland, the Red Army rolling through the east, and the lack of substantial support from its western allies, the Polish government decided that further resistance was futile and rescinded the Romanian bridgehead plan and allowed these forces to cross into Romania, where they were interned by the Romanian army. Meanwhile, the remaining units in Poland continued to engage the Germans in desperate fighting. On September 28, Warsaw fell after a 3-week siege that had withstood relentless German air, artillery, and ground attacks. Isolated Polish pockets held until the first week of October 1939. On September 28, 1939, as the war was winding down, Germany and the Soviet Union agreed to make changes to their respective spheres of influence as set forth in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. On October 8, Germany annexed western Poland and formed the German-run administration in the rest of German-assigned territory in Poland. The Soviet Union annexed its share of Polish territories, partitioning them among its subordinate states, Belarus, Ukraine, and later Lithuania.